The Namibia Institute of Corporate Governance invites you to the next edition of the Fireplace Conversations, focusing on everyday governance through the leadership journey of Mr. Sam Shivute. This conversation will reflect on the journey of building NamRA as a national institution, the lessons that come with leading reform, and the role of governance in creating public value. Join host Edla Gombe for an engaging discussion on leadership, accountability, and strengthening institutions. Be part of the conversation live on the NICG and the Namibian Facebook pages or attend in person. To reserve your seat, contact 081 666 8645 or email training.events@nicg.org.na. Fireplace Conversations, proudly supported by 91 Namibia.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the NICG Fireplace Conversations. My name is Edla Kaumbi, the Executive Director of the NICG. And welcome to you here also in the room. We have quite a full room, and I guess we understand why. And welcome to you, my guest. This evening, we are having a special Fireplace Conversations. In fact, it's so special that I have a co-host, Desmond Nicanor, the NICG chairperson, because we are very excited to have you. This evening, as you know, we've been talking about governance. We talked about sports governance. We talked about the PEGA legislation. It sounds like my mic is off. And just different things. But today, we want to look at what does that governance look like in practice, in real life, day to day. And this is why we have the commissioner here, because it's not just about the charts and the policies, but what does it look like day to day. But before we begin, we want to thank our sponsor, 91, leading investment operators in the country and on the continent. Thank you, 91, for sponsoring the entire series. So let's get into it. Tonight's guest is someone who was handed an extraordinary task, and we believe he handled it really exceptionally. Commissioner Sam Shivute is the founding commissioner of the Namibia Revenue Agency, NamRA. He was appointed in September 2020 before the enabling legislation had even been gazetted, and was handed the job of turning a collection of departments from the Ministry of Finance into a world-class semi-autonomous revenue agency. In less than 5 years, NamRA has, I think they collected 275 billion Namibian dollars in revenue. That's a 67% increase in domestic revenue mobilization since inception. I think that deserves a round of applause. But numbers are not the whole story. What is equally remarkable is what NamRA looks like: the brand, the culture, the choir, the colors, the way the officials speak about their work. Mr. Shivute, you not just build a system, you build an institutional character. You hold a B Juris and a Master of Law in International Finance and Banking Law from the University of Liverpool. You're an accredited transformational coach. Before NamRA, you spent 18 years at the Bank of Namibia and 8 years in the Namibian Police Force. Wow. Including a stint as Deputy Chief of Office of Professional Standards with the UN mission in East Timor. This is so impressive. Commissioner has received the African Achievers Award for Leadership Excellence, and most recently, the African Brand Leadership Excellence Award in Public Service. Recognition that says something about how the continent is watching what NamRA is building. Commissioner, very warm welcome to you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much, Edla.
Yes.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. So as you've seen over the last few episodes, we've been talking about what best practice talks about what good governance looks like. It's not about, like I say, charters and policies. It's about the outcomes. The King Code talks about good performance, legitimacy, ethical culture, and effective controls. So what does that look like in every day? So Commissioner, you were appointed in September 2020. Before it was even gazetted, the legislation was gazetted. What did day one actually look like when you walked in?
Thank you. Thank you, Edla, and Desmond. Thank you for having me. And let me just recognize the presence of all the NamRA stars who accompanied me here, and also our distinguished guests and those who are following online. And I'm very, very deeply humbled to be here. Talking about day one within the space of tax administration is actually the day that the semi-autonomous tax administration starts. So in the context of NamRA, day one would then be the 7th of April 2021, when the institution was eventually launched. That is what we call day one within the context of tax administration.
Okay.
But if I to describe to you what day one, it wasn't just about starting a new institution. Day one was about people, human beings, what we now call men and women in navy blue, white, and a touch of orange. It was about hope. It was about overcoming resistance. But to put it into a picture this, the day just before independence, the 21st of March, 1990. For us at NamRA, that is really how it was, because you then have this situation where you have the president, the vice president, minister of finance, and everyone, all our stakeholders, and the NamRA stars, and the choir was already there, launching and saying that NamRA now has officially started, because before day one, the commissioner was operating without having legislative power to administer tax law. And again, what makes this day one very special, September, when I was appointed, the expert, including all the experts and those who were advising the Ministry of Finance before, they say for one to be able to be ready for day one need about 12 months. So I was expected to be there for about 12 months, just making sure that everything is in place before day one can then start. And after reflecting and looking and being inspired by the team of men and women whom I worked with as change champion, I said, we're not going to be here for 12 months without having legislative power. If it can be done in 12 months, we will do it in 6 months. And come 7th of April, gazetting happened on the 6th, and we were ready and we delivered.
Nice. Well done. But okay, so yes, you inherited people who were government employees who were used to working a certain way. And you talked a little bit about, resistance and things like that. How did you manage that? How did you get everyone to work together or to change mindsets? Or, what does that look like? Because you mentioned change champions. Maybe speak more to that.
Okay. Yes. The people that you referred to, we had two departments that were responsible for revenue collection within the Ministry of Finance. You have Custom and Excise Directorate, then you have Inland Revenue Department that deals with domestic taxes. And all these departments, they have different officials. So what we then did, together with the change champion, we first needed to understand the culture. So we did a survey to understand what are the two culture of these two departments, only for us to find out that the culture are so very different. And these people, most of them, they do not even know very well. Sometimes they do not even engage with one another, despite the fact that they work in the same ministry. Then you also find there were also others who it was a standard. When they come to work, the first thing they do is to go to ShopRite, and they do some shopping, and at 9 o'clock they will walk in with yellow plastic, and it was a standard, and so on. And of course, then you will have others who, during the day, when they're supposed to do what they're supposed to do, work will not be done. But in the afternoon, because there is an overtime, everyone is there. So the culture, that was the type of a culture that we then agreed together with the management, my leadership team, and of course the change champion, and say, this culture is not the culture that we want to have in NamRA. So we needed then to know that we needed to shift that. But to change that culture, you needed also to make people believe in themselves, to know that, look, because there is this perception that people in public or officials in public service, they are not as good comparable to those in private sector. I don't buy into that, because people in private sector and those in public sector, we all went to the same school, we went to the same university. Some of us, we all came from the same village. So it cannot be correct that those in private sector are better than those in public sector. But you need to make people understand that. As a result of that, there are also some books that we needed to read. For example, everyone in NamRA, everyone who was going to come before for an interview, because we needed to interview, everyone have to compete for their position. we needed then to make sure that everyone read Mind Power by John Cahill, Mind Power into the 21st century, because with Mind Power, you will understand how your mind operates, the power that you have, the sixth law of the law of the mind, how to control your thoughts, how to make things happen using your mind. And everyone read that book. And if that was not enough, then we also needed everyone to read Who Moved My Cheese, because it's one of the best classic as far as change management is concerned. We need to understand how to build the culture. I remember we needed to have a meeting with some of the change champion and with some of the leader on top of the mountain.
What
We
mountain?
need on top of our mountain, on top of the
Okay.
mountain.
It was
We
giving.
needed to have a meeting. We needed to have a meeting in Atlantic Ocean. One of the most efficient meeting I have ever held in my career is having a management meeting in the ocean while it's cold and the water is up to here. But you do all these things for people to know that change is here. We're going to behave. We're going to show up differently. We're going to behave differently, and it's possible. And it's possible to build your unique culture.
Wow. I think we're going to get back to that. Doesn't
Yeah.
you want to add to that? Because we're going to look at different aspects of the, of the outcomes of corporate governance. But I think you want to add, because you're going to ask the next question anyway.
Yes. I think, Commissioner, last week we had a leading the board masterclass. And I think one of the successes that came up, governance successes that came up, was the story of NamRA. And some of the things that you are explaining now, when you talk about reading books before an interview, or a certain way to dress, a certain way to carry yourself, these are things that cannot be legislated. They cannot be codified. They cannot be sort of imprinted onto a person. So, as the commissioner and the chief executive, firstly, how do you embody that culture, and probably most importantly, how do you how does one, maybe a leadership team, transfer that culture without it being sort of a demand in a military type of way, that it's so voluntary and it transitions almost automatically? I think that's honestly the question that many around, and as we're preparing for this, many that wanted to know.
Thank you, Desmond. All this which I'm going to share and which I have shared, I must just give credit to say that it's not dependent on one person. It's not about Sam Shivute. It's about the men and women that I spoke about in navy blue, white, and a touch of orange. It's about the former ministers of finance and the current minister of finance. It's because it's about the 1,000 people that have been involved in my journey. And if you recall very well, 26 years ago, I worked in what is called Office of Professional Standard Audit and Evaluation for the UN. So in the UN, in East Timor, there you have about police officer coming from more than 50 countries, and we needed to professionalize all of them to work as per the UN Code of Conduct. So that you bring all your experience and what you are learning from your colleagues and from different books. And some of the colleagues, I remember even Victor brought me a book about how to manage cultural diversity and so on. But when you would want to change and to help people behave and show up differently, you do not need to force this upon people. You need to make people see the benefit out of them behaving the way you would want to see. For example, we wanted to dress very professional. And that's why we dress the way we dress. And one day I remember one of deputy minister addressed Namibia Revenue Agency, and he said, speaking for myself and telling the truth, as far as I'm concerned, the most well-dressed institution I've ever seen is Namibia Revenue Agency.
Hela.
But this compliment, we have received it in US, we have received it in Morocco, we have received it in Denmark, because wherever we show up, even when I was in China, wherever we show up, this is how the entire team show up. So, but what is interesting is that there is no policy at NamRA talking about that this is how we should dress. But what also many people do not know, when I travel in many other African countries, you'll find tax administration or custom administration buying uniforms or suits for their staff.
Yes.
This is not the case with NamRA. When you see those men and women in navy blue, white, and a touch of orange looking the way they look, they buy those things with their own money, but they don't just buy it. For men and women, they also make sure that it's tailor-made or it look proper. You understand? So it's really just about making people to see what is the benefit of looking professional or behaving professional, or it's the same thing as well, like in our meetings at Namibia Revenue Agency. If I come late to a meeting, let's say for example, I'm just about to enter into our management committee meeting or staff meeting, and before just I enter, then Meshafuda, my boss, call, or Dr. Kriel, my boss, call, and I take his call, and I get into that meeting late, just with 1 minute. I already know that when I go in, I cannot explain to the team that no, I'm late because I was on the phone with my boss, or maybe I have a child who's supposed to go to the hospital or whatever, that's why I'm late. I already know that I have to take the punishment. Either I have to do 30 push-ups, or I have to do squats, I have to carry a chair in the air, I have to sing, and it applies for everyone from entry level to myself. And I don't even need to be asked to do it. And if you fail to punish yourself, you are always reminded about one of our values, is that of integrity. But all those things are not written, but it's happening every day.
So the perception that there are hard-coded rules and sort of terms of engagement is not the case. It's an organic culture that has been built through time. And maybe on the other side of that question, how did you handle? I mean, you said you interviewed some, and or maybe everybody. I'm sure not everybody chose that way. Not everybody bought into it. How did you handle that?
But I must tell you the truth. Up to today, for whatever reason, I have never really encountered people from Namibia Revenue Agency who are not buying into that. And we do not go out there threatening people, or maybe saying people, you must do it and so on. And that's why up to today, I never had a case where I have a serious issue with someone who is not doing that up to today. Do you also know that for the past 5 years as well, since we started, no Namibia revenue employees have come to my office or during any of our meeting and say, oh, I want to be a part of the union. In actual fact, union, they have been invited to come and talk to people. We do not have a representative of the union. It's something that is very humbling, because I think we work and we save for the best interest of our staff. But getting back to the issue of codifying things that you want to see, you need always also to understand the context within which you are operating, and cultural diversity, and also where we're coming from. We as African, for example, we have always learned through oral history and learning from, like we're having a fire conversation like this. This is how we learned, and we believed those things. I'll give an example. You are told, for example, you cannot do this, or maybe at night you must not clean the house. I'll give you an example. I want to share with you one example. When I was growing up at Lungkono village, I was made to believe by my mom that when my mom got angry and she take her breast, get angry towards me, and she take her breast and she suck it, you drop dead and you die. So, and there are many things that we were just told and we believed it and it worked. And I'll give you then there was a time when I grew up, and I think I was about 16, 17 there around. There was a time one day when I think maybe I did something wrong, and my mom wanted to punish me, and she wanted to catch me, and I ran away. And she just took the breast out. And when she took it out, I ran back to her and I grabbed her because I believed that I will die. So again, as I said, there is something that, I mean, sometimes all those things are not legislated. Yeah, and I think you don't need to document and legislate everything, including common law. You know, common law in Namibia is not legislated and it's working.
No, I think, and you taking us into the next point where we are going. Your mission, the vision rather, is to be a world-class revenue agency that's serving with passion. Where does that phrase come from? What's the origins behind that mission? And mostly because, I mean, a big part of your team is decentralized. They can be on literally the corners of this country. How do you make sure, again, that vision is actually acted out, even when you are not there. And I mean, maybe not you, but your leadership team and their leaders.
Okay, thank you, Desmond. You know, you may have heard that at NamRA we have a leadership model. Everything that we do in NamRA, it's in one page. Our leadership model is just one page, and I hope I could WhatsApp or share with you our leadership model.
Please
now,
do. Thank you.
with regard to our vision, with regard to the vision, we have always put one thing that we are not unapologetic for at Namibia Revenue Agency is ensuring that we put God at the center of everything that we do. We pray for everything. We pray before our meeting. I believe in prayer, and I have seen miracle, and the Almighty God have made things happen. And I'm not even in this position because of myself. No, I am 100% sure that God placed me in this position. We'll talk about that one day. So this vision was prayed for. You know, there's some time when people are about to build an institution or to start working on an institution, they will benchmark here and so and copy. This vision was never copied. It was prayed for. You can Google it and so on and see whether you can find something like that, especially now with AI. And we always, because what happened, and the vision came even before day one. This division was there before day one, before NamRA started. The vision and the value, those things were presented to those who interviewed for these positions. And therefore, we knew that for us to start, from September, for us to start coming to work, you needed to have a vision. That's why we aspire to be a world-class revenue agency, serving with passion to positively impact the livelihood of every Namibian. So that when you then come to work, you look at this world-class revenue agency. That's what you're aspiring. Then you, of course, you have your value. So that later on, when we then ensure that before day one, we have our strategic plan in place, everything must speak to that vision. So again, world class is number one. You can't aim, there's no way you can aim to be continental or to be national based or continental. We wanted to be world class. But I can tell you, Desmond, Edla, I can tell you now, you know, there is a saying by Dr. Wayne there that that which you wish for, that you want to manifest to become, you must already start acting as if it have already manifested. So we start as we were always aspiring for world-class revenue agency and so on. But I can tell you now, within 5 years, and I don't know whether there are many institutions that will claim what we can claim within 5 years. Forget about revenue collection. Forget about already from 2024 being number one in Africa as far as tax ratio to GDP. Wow. But some of these things that my team and I, we will be able to look back one day and be very proud of. For example, we were able to secure a partnership with Stanford University. So their students, they come and do their internship on leadership with us for 3 months, and we do work together. Wow. And they pay for everything. This is at Stanford. And if Stanford was not enough, then Columbia University from the US, they sent more than 10 students, pay for them everything, and they come to learn from us and work with us and, wow. and develop concept and strategies and so on. Stanford University, Columbia University. If that is not enough, okay. We already have a working relationship with a China custom. That is just one example. Then you have the IMF. IMF giving us all the support. Then you have a US Treasury funding more than 10 advisors at their expenses to come, and we work together to make this institution world class. Then wherever there is a tax dialogue and so on, they will invite a NamRA official to go there. We already have colleagues working for SACU, working for World Customs Organization on secondment, working for UNDP. All these things started. We have certified expert, rules of origin, coordinated border management, all these things. And if you Google now, just Google now, top tax administration in Africa or best tax administration leaders in Africa, the Google and AI and Gemini, they don't lie.
Take it to the same place.
All right. Wow. This is really, really wow. But I'm still stuck on the sucking of the breast. thing.
Yes.
No, because that was a tactic that your mom used to sort of, get you to listen. So it was sort of like a stick, kind of a stick, but not a stick. So what is the equivalent of the breast sucking at NamRA in terms of getting people to do something? Because you're saying it's not codified, you kind of get their minds, but how? I hope you hear what I'm trying to ask. What does that look like?
Maybe the example may not have been the perfect, but many people, especially those who grew up in the northern part of Namibia, they will tell you that many people are aware of that and many things that this we must not do, or you must do this, though this cannot be done at night, and people just
So
comply.
how do you do that for
But
NamRA?
at NamRA,
Yes.
no, at NamRA there is no threat whatsoever. No, at NamRA, what happened at NamRA is that we all want to be the best version that we could be. We want to be professional. We take pride in our team, the way we show up. So if, for example, at NamRA, if you now come into our meeting and you're not dressed like how everyone is dressed, you look odd. You look odd, and you will not even look nice, because everyone knows that what look nice is navy blue, white, and a touch of orange. So you will look like you're not one of us. Do you get?
Yeah.
Have you seen us at the soccer field? How engaged and the harmony and the cohesiveness. Have you seen us dancing the family dance? I don't think there's any other company that dance better than the NamRA stars.
Sure.
So it's about that one. If you don't follow what we do, you may just look out of the odd, because there are people who are not working for NamRA who are forever calling and they want to work for NamRA. And what impresses us is when we see people in private sector saying, oh, I want to come and make a change and work in NamRA, because NamRA's work is significant and it's meaningful, and you can see the impact of that work.
Yeah. No, for sure, because that leads to what I want to say. I think the navy blue and white with a touch of orange. So, so I mean, then you have the choir. You're talking about the dancing and stuff. Some people might think it's marketing, or we might think it's marketing, but we also know in governance that culture is, an embedded thing. I mean, we all know Peter Drucker's sentiment about, culture will eat strategy for breakfast, so we get that. But what is the message? How, what are you trying to communicate? Why those colors? What is it that what is the messaging that you are giving with regards to that? I mean, even like you're saying, people will feel out. So what is it that they should be hearing and should be communicating with all of these cultural elements of NamRA?
Okay, I think what we are communicating there, what you are seeing, especially from a dressing perspective, you're seeing nothing but professionalism and stars, NamRA stars that have pride in their brand, in their identity. But of course, it's not only about how you show up, how you dress, but it's also remember, we needed to do a lot of things. Like you're right when you quoted Peter Drucker. We know that culture is a foundation upon which great institutions are built. That's why you then need to have different facets of building pieces that you bring together. For example, choir, for example. I mean, music and singing, that is something that is part of us as African. And we did not just have a choir, we have one of the best choir. This is a choir that get invited by many different state-owned enterprise to go and perform. Sometimes company, they even want to pay. Even in Rundu, at public enterprise, they were saying, can you give us a quote or how much? We said, no, we'll give that to you as a gift. So you have the choir, you have the tug of war, which is one of the best team in Namibia. You have the football team. You have the netball team, which is the champion in Africa and also the champion at the public enterprise game. You have the volleyball. So you have different facets of having, and all this we then bring it to the NamRA culture.
Yeah. So what I'm hearing you say is, if you want to communicate a message of professionalism, you also want to create a message of identity and unity, harmony and cohesion. Yeah,
that's correct. If you listen to the speech of the late President Hage Geingob when he launched NamRA on the 7th of April, one of his requirements was that I want a harmonious working relationship as well. So that's why we make sure that our staff are engaged. We want to ensure that our staff are engaged. We want to make sure that we have a harmonious working relationship. We are connected, because remember, from a leadership perspective, if you're not connected with your colleagues or with your team, you will not even be able to influence them. You will not even be able to win together. 100%. But also one thing that we also use at Namibia Revenue Agency is a football leadership philosophy as well, where I look at myself as a coach, and you then have other players in the soccer team knowing very well that you need to communicate to one another. You need to know your position. You need to assist one another. For you to win, you need to score goals. You need to defend the team. And like yes, those are some of the principles that we use as well. NamRA.
I don't know if we're following that. You know, we're talking about the outcomes of good governance, and so what we were trying to mine now was in terms of ethical culture, right? So we want to move in terms of, you know, performance and what that looks like, right? And I hope we caught, you know, in terms of identity, in terms of cohesion, leading from the top, and some of the cultural elements that bring about, you know, setting the tone for ethical culture. So if we're talking performance, in less than 5 years, NamRA, you collected this 275 billion. That's like a huge number. But we also know that, you know, good performance is not just about financial targets. It's also about, you know, stakeholders. King 4 says good performance means creating value for all stakeholders, not just, you know, hitting financial targets. So who are NamRA stakeholders? And how do you balance the revenue mandate against the experience of the ordinary Namibian taxpayer? And Desmond, I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much. The Namibia Revenue Agency stakeholders, all the taxpayers are stakeholders. Then, of course, you have the government, you have a political party, you have even Namibia Institute of Corporate Governance is stakeholder, because we need to make sure that from a corporate governance perspective, we are compliant, and I'm going to state that as well. You will be very happy to hear that in this country, there are institutions that have struggled even for 10 years to have audited financials or to or submit annual report and so on. We don't have any outstanding annual report or audited. Neither have we ever received a qualified financial audited. You understand? So from your institution's perspective, we are compliant. Then, of course, we also understand, for example, our key stakeholders are taxpayers. And we know that there are 4 obligations for the taxpayers, like your legislation, your filing, accurate reporting, payment of taxes on time, and so on. But what we have also done, we have also put mechanism in place. For example, we have the objection unit, so that if a taxpayer is not happy about the assessment or audit outcome, or what he or she have been made to pay, they can go to the objection unit and put their objection there. It will be done independently. And what I'm happy with up to today, they have not been a situation whereby the objection audit have said that, no, this person was made to pay so much, and the commissioner said, no, he must pay. No, that's why we have always respected those decisions. And also, if that decision, the taxpayer is not happy, there is also another layer of a tribunal, where if they are not happy with the final decision of the commissioner, this matter will go to a tribunal. Everything paid by government and Namibia Revenue Agency. And that tribunal, you have legal practitioner of the Higher Court and Supreme Court of Namibia. They are the one to adjudicate. Can you see the fairness?
Yeah, the fairness, 100%.
Because in tax administration, when you have you have the principle of fairness, equity, transparency, and accountability, you build trust. And when you build trust between taxpayer and tax administration, even your level of compliance will go up. So we're taking care of those things.
100%. Yes,
I think the Namibia the NamRA Act that was obviously promulgated and gazetted by Parliament gives NamRA quite some sweeping powers, if I may call it like that. They have powers to assess, powers to audit, powers to penalize, which is correct by law. Good governance talks about the ethics of power, which is how to, they say meekness is handling strength with, or balancing power with mercy. When it comes to NamRA, how do you think about that, especially around how NamRA engages? I know you've been doing a lot of work around small businesses, informal traders, order with me's, first-time taxpayers. how do you balance that power with mercy? And I have a little follow-up question on that, but maybe let's start with that. How do you balance that power to make sure that, yes, you have all the legislative powers to do as you should be doing, but there is perhaps some stakeholders that may not be sort of playing at the same field or maybe a little bit underrepresented? How do you handle that?
Yeah, thank you very much. So what happened is that with power come great responsibility. So we have all these powers, but that's why we have also put in mechanism to make sure that those powers do not get abused. For example, we have an internal affair department whereby whenever there's a complaint against the NamRA staff, they will investigate. Or if a person can go to anti-corruption and so on. That's one of it. Then what we have also done, you know that Namibia have not yet passed the Whistleblowing Act, for example. But what we have done at Namibia Revenue Agency, we have partnered with an auditing firm, Deloitte, and there is a system of a whistleblowing system, so that if any person want to report, be it tax evasion or anything with regard to NamRA, anonymously, they report at Deloitte on the system anonymously, and action will be taken. Do you understand? So if you abide to the principle of transparency and accountability, especially when your country have not passed that law, you will not do that. But that system have contributed more than 15 million to the Namibian coffers, because many people, if there is a person out there who is not paying their taxes, or maybe a person is corrupt within NamRA, because one of our culture, one of our principle is zero tolerance to corruption. Or if you corrupt or you take bribe and so on, you will never be a happy NamRA star, because we don't want anything to do with you. When you are corrupt, that is not a place you would want to be, and you will feed it. Even the energy you will feed it. It's not a place for you. Yeah.
I think and building on to that, the powers. I think I remember when I was reading just that your founding piece of legislation under your powers and functions, there is one specific clause that talks about NamRA being an advisor to the minister. Maybe it's quite of public interest. You are on the coalface. You do deal and meet with the average taxpayer, the small business player, the order with me's. To what extent does that feedback loop? Yes, your responsibility is to enforce the legislation. How active is that feedback loop to say, Honorable Minister or Cabinet or lawmakers, I think this is what we are seeing on the ground, and I think this is how legislation should possibly perhaps change or be amended to account for some of those things that we are seeing? How strong is that feedback loop from agency upwards?
Yeah. But on a monthly basis, there is a reporting mechanism from NamRA to the Minister of Finance. But of course, we also have an obligation then to fulfill that function of advising the Minister of Finance as far as revenue collection is concerned. So it's working. It's working, but I think because in NamRA, if one look at our leadership model, we have adopted the principle of Kaizen and also the continuous improvement. I think going forward, what we need to do, we are now busy setting up an independent research unit or division, because we could do more with regard to that. It's working. The legislation process, currently there have been a number of advice passed and so on, but I think it could get better. I just want to make that point that it can get better. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and I think we're going to move along a little bit more into the technology space. It may not be as cool to speak about, but I think it's central to what the agency is doing very well. You've introduced significant technology, from the trade verification system to pre-clearance to container control, and of course, most of us interact with ITAS almost on a, let me say, yearly basis with much glee. Who's responsible at board level for the introduction of this type of technology in terms of accountability, and how do you ensure that it does not introduce unnecessary risks in a very sensitive environment such as our financial affairs or the state's financial affairs? How do you balance those two things?
Okay. At the institutional level, of course, the accounting officer or the commissioner is accountable. But of course, we are also strategically guided and overseen by the board. And in that board, there is also a committee that is responsible for risk audit. And I'm very happy that our chairman, for example, is a digital transformation expert, Dr. Peter Clear.
Yes,
So so at an institutional level, the commissioner is accountable. But again, there was one point that I was supposed to mention at the beginning. As we were building this institution, and we continue transforming and building this institution, we've always focused on 4 pillars. Number 1 was on people, having the right people in the right position. Number 2 was systems. Number 3 is processes. And number 4, culture. Now on system, because we are at systems now, our major key system, apart from those other technological innovation that we've implemented, is of course your SCODA, the customs administration system, and the integrated tax administration system, your ITAS. And our focus have always been to make sure that those systems are upgraded to be at a world-class level. And we continue doing that with ITAS, for example. The database is already at the world-class version. The application will be finalized within a period of 24 months, the upgrading of that. Our SCODA system, the custom administration system, is already now at the world-class level. It's the best version in the world. And you know very well that when these systems were implemented, there were some pain points like it happened with any other system. But I'm just very happy that sometimes you have to go through some pain for you to be able to get that which now we are heading to, for the Namibian people to start benefiting from that. So the accountability at an institutional level, the CEO, of course, but of course we are very happy that we benefit from a very capable board. But again, I just spoke about the board. Do you know that the board, the founding board, 5 years, no issue, no disagreement, no disagreement, no fight, no argument, no disagreement, nothing leaked and so on for 5 years. I've never seen that before.
In the boardroom?
In the boardroom and also outside the boardroom. We have only seen support and people, Namibian people, working together and making things happen.
But they have lively debates.
Oh yes, definitely, definitely. Okay. But it's a board the way everyone is looking to go to that lively debate, because it was a place of growth. Yeah. It was a masterclass on leadership, and it will continue like that.
Yeah, wow. I'll be following along. We talked about ethical culture. We were talking now about performance and controls and so on. And now we want to talk about legitimacy and how you earn the public's trust. And you did mention it earlier, especially in the way that you've implemented processes to help the stakeholders or the taxpayer to be able to voice their concerns and so on. You know, a revenue agency runs on voluntary compliance, and voluntary compliance runs on trust. What was the public's relationship with the old Inland Revenue when NamRA launched, and how long did it take before you felt that Namibians were beginning to genuinely trust NamRA? Do you feel they trust NamRA, and where was the shift? When was the shift?
You know, this week we've been on a program working with IMF on a program called Tax Administration Diagnostic Assessment Tool. It's a scientific system to measure the health status of a tax administration, and even the issue of trust is there. So one of the requirements for tax administration that they have to do is to do a survey to determine
who's they? Who's they?
No.
Who's doing the survey?
No, the tax administration is supposed to do an independent survey to measure the public trust in the institution. So whatever will answer to that question will be based on an assumption. I know that we're communicating a lot. I know that we are being transparent. When you go to our social media website, all our annual report, we communicate everything. I think sometimes we even over communicate, even our happiness. That's why some people complain about our happiness, that we are too much happy, but we're intentional about that. So the issue of trust is something that you cannot stand out there and say the public trust us, because it can also change just like this. So, but what we are going to do, we are going to continue working on the drivers that ensure that there is public trust. The issue of fairness, equity, being transparent, being accountable to our shareholder, to our taxpayers, and also having those mechanisms in place where people, they know where to go and complain.
Yeah.
People know that if I'm offended by NamRA, there are other mechanisms independent from NamRA to help me, and that is what we need to build on.
Wow, that's good. This is a bit of a harder one that I'm going to ask you now. You collect money as NamRA, but you have no control on how the government spends that money that you collect. Now, when citizens feel that public funds are being wasted or misused, when the people feel this way, does that affect whether they pay their taxes willingly? Do you have an idea of knowing that? And do you think that's your problem to solve, or is it somebody else's problem to solve?
You see, at the level at which I am now, 31 years of continuous public service, I cannot just be a leader within NamRA. I must be concerned and act as a national leader. So I can't just be micro thinking about NamRA. And therefore, your question is very correct. In tax administration, there's always these things about tax administrator, focus on tax administration. You do what the law say. The issue of policy, you leave it for policymaker. However, I'll tell you what, when the members of the public knows what their money is used for, that also helped to build trust in the state. It helped to promote compliance, and if compliance is improved, that make our work at NamRA also very easy. But there is a need to communicate more, because people need to be told that 90% of Namibia's budget is funded through the revenue that Namibia Revenue Agency collects. People need to be made to understand that our aunt and our mothers and those that do not work at our village, and they are getting a monthly social grant. I look at some of my aunt and some people at my village who have never worked, but at least on a monthly basis, they have something from government. So we need to make people understand that that is taxpayers' money. So when we launch open a new clinic, or maybe a consignment of medicine arrive in the country, this should not be the responsibility only of the Minister of Finance. You would want those sectoral ministers, as they are proud announcing those projects or what have been delivered, they must show and demonstrate to the Namibian people and say that this is the money from the taxpayer, is your money. Because even if the money that is used to deliver on a specific project is borrowed, even that which is borrowed, it still have to be funded and paid with the money that is coming from the taxpayer collected by NamRA. So I was engaging with the leadership of the Gambia, and I was very impressed how they present this to make the taxpayer very understand. They will say, as a result of GRA's collection, in these 5 years, we increase civil servant with this percentage. They say, we building this number of class with your money. So this message must just not come from the president. This message must just not come from my boss. This message must just not come from NamRA. This message must come, everyone who is delivering using taxpayers' money, they must show evidence to the taxpayers' money, so that at the end of the day, the taxpayer knows very well where their monies are going. And once that is done, people will be able to willingly and freely pay, just like in Norway, in Sweden, in Finland. People are very, very happy. In actual fact, they will even take a tax administration to court if they have not been provided with an opportunity to pay their taxes.
Wow.
Because they see where is it going.
So I guess that speaks to when things are going well, right? When or perhaps what you're saying then is you throwing the ball in the court of those who are entrusted with this money to be transparent, to also then govern well. Because my question has to do with when this is not done well, and if the taxpayer then doesn't see what you're saying, where the institution shows that, wow, because you paid this tax, we were able to get this X-ray machine or this MRI machine, or because you paid your tax, so that being done helps. So when that isn't done, what should happen?
You see, sometimes there's this perception that maybe things are not going very well. I think what need to be done, what need to be improved, is the communication strategy and also transparency. Because sometimes based on your question, it may give a view that maybe things are not going very well. I have traveled this continent and the world. Do you know that in Africa, there are many countries whereby people, special public servant, they do not know whether end of the month their salary will be there. Do you know that? Now, having served this country for 31 years continuously, there was never a time that the Namibian government was not able to pay civil servant. And remember, when the civil servant cannot be paid, that means public services cannot be provided. So that have never happened. Now, let's come back to the hospital. In this country, you can need an operation, and you have never worked. You will go to the state hospital and get the best operation. Do you know that in this country, during the COVID pandemic, do you know that public hospitals have saved more lives, even better? The public hospital was more effective than even some of the private hospital. We had never had an issue of having the medicine. All those medicine that have to come during pandemic, they were bought for. And all this money. So what we need more is to improve our level of communication and strategy, so that we can make the Namibian public aware to know that every time you see a police officer responding to your complaint, or you see a police vehicle moving to make sure that your country is safe, that is as a result of taxpayers' money. So I think that that level of communication, because I hear people sometimes launching project, I hear medicine sometimes coming and so on, but the link to the taxpayers' money and that project, sometimes it does not happen.
And as we begin to land the plane, so to speak, we'll get into a little bit more personal questions, or rather revolving you as an individual. Commissioner, you are an accredited transformational coach, I think, as Edla put in her introduction. You also have quite as you said, many decades of experience in the civil service, and you also have many years of experience in the, if I may call it, the security cluster. How does that combination of unique skills inform the way, or shape the way you lead NamRA? I think that's probably one of the questions that we often ask to pose to you. How does that combination of things, or is your leadership style informed by that? And also, how do you draw the line between the individual, let me, for lack of a better word, imposing their individual view, will, and values, as opposed to the head of an institution building organizational values and will? How do you draw that line?
Thank you, Desmond. But before drawing the line, all those experience, not only the 31 experience, I'm talking about including the before starting in public service. I mean, when as an assistant taxi driver, all those come and help you in a way. For example, my experience within the Namibian, maybe as an assistant taxi driver, I was responsible for making sure that the money is safe, and you communicate with people to come in your best. I use that in my current leadership style. In the Namibian police, I was a detective. It's about investigation and finding out, moving from the unknown to the known. You need it in a tax administration because there's also a component of investigation. We have an investigation unit even within NamRA. Then from the central bank, the central bank is project management, is currency, is taking care that the money of the central bank or the state is safe. So again, that you find its space within tax administration. I told you a new N is professionalism, as it finds its way. So my leadership style is informed by the combination of all that, but also this spirit where I know that I know nothing and I learn from everyone. I learn from my staff, I learn from my colleagues, I learn from people who are younger than me, and I think I have more mentors and coaches. And also I became the first ever commissioner or commissioner general in the world whereby my coaching on a monthly basis is funded by IMF on a monthly basis. And I went back to IMF and said, I don't want to be selfish. Don't just fund for me. please also fund so that my executive and some of my manager can be coached. So it's a combination of many.
So, and to the second part of that question, how does a transformational leader balance imparting personal or individual values, views, with not having that overshadow organizational, or are the two one in the same?
Not necessarily, but I can only say that being a transformational coach, it then helps, because as a transformational coach, your work is to help people to move from where they are to where they want to be. And there are many strategies and models that are used to achieve that. So you bring that to work. And when you bring that to work as well, then how it influences me, for example, I have this, I always look out for the best. I always focus on the solution. So even whatever challenges that we face, my focus is always to tell the colleagues, yes, because sometimes people get into a meeting, maybe the system is not working, or there's this complaint or the insult and so on, or attempt interference. I just said, let's just focus on the solution because it's very possible. And but sometimes that which make you, it also influence the leadership to a certain extent. But I remember, I surround myself with people who are better than me, and I have to listen to them as well. Yeah.
And if we now start to land on legacy, I mean, NamRA, if NamRA continues on this trajectory, and inevitably, like we all will do, we'll all at some point depart the seats that we are in, what will tell you in 10 years, 15 years time, that this institution has truly taken root? What's the one thing that, if survived in your departure, would mean that your governance and your touch, or the leadership touch, or your time rather, as a team actually worked, and it has borne the fruit that for which it was designed?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Desmond. I've always argued and said that a strong tax administration, and I'm stronger tax administration, I mean an independent, semi-autonomous tax administration, mean a stronger state. And I say a weaker tax administration would amount to a weaker state. And a weaker state will become a fragile state. And a fragile state, no one will want to live in that. And therefore, my wish is for NamRA to continue growing and to be stronger. And of course, guided by the values and those principles of fairness and equity. But when I leave NamRA, I would want to see NamRA whereby the concept of zero tolerance to corruption must remain. Where there is zero tolerance to corruption, number one, and also the institution must be run in such a way that it does not allow to be abused, either to be abused. Remember in NamRA, now for example, now we even have compliance risk compliance risk unit, whereby it's not an individual who will say Desmond or Edla must be audited. We don't want a power to be abused. There's a scientific process to choose case audit, so that it's not a case of people abusing the power. You don't want, you find also people, including business people, who want to fight one another and they want to use an institution. You must, with power comes responsibility. Don't allow the institution to be used. You appreciate and respect political principle, but don't allow political interference in terms of people wanting to control, because tax administration is a powerful tool and it can be abused and it can be used to fight other opponents and so on. So you want that independence. So zero corruption, not allowing to be abused or to be used, and also just having that professionalism, harmonious, cohesiveness, and it continue to be one of the most cheerful institutions in the country, and happy to the extent that other people will complain about that happiness.
Cheerful. Yeah. I like that. Yeah.
Harmonious. Wow, we spoke. I can't believe we just had one guest. This was amazing. And I didn't even give any of you a chance to comment, to ask, or anything. And you have 2 minutes to do that. There's a question there at the back.
Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Thank you. I was here 2 weeks ago. Governance on sports sector. I'm here. When I saw the advert on social media, I followed him. Your inspiration brought me here, sir. And I'm also came here to make a booking with you for appointment to discuss sport issues. Now, I followed you even on the social, what is it called, in Rundu, the SOE games. As you said correctly, you have the best tug of war team, netball team. Now, the sports sector is prioritized number 2 in terms of priority by the president. And we are at the juncture where we are looking at the reforming sports and as well as the turnaround strategy. Now, we are facing a lot of resistance in that because you need to move towards a professional setup so that to unlock the sports economy. For example, we have benchmarked a Brazilian model that is successful in generating revenue for the sports sector, where a levy is actually deducted from businesses that are carried over to sports. Now, mine is rather a remark rather than a question. Sir, are you willing to put your weight together with the Institute of Corporate Governance towards the change of sports? Because we are at the juncture, we need a change agent as we speak. That is a personal question. I don't expect you to answer it right away, yes or no, but perhaps in that field, you can give us some way forward. Thank you.
Your name again?
Irvin Javera.
Okay, because I can't see.
Yeah, Mr. Irvin Javera.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Master Elvin Javera, for your very good question, and thank you. I'm very humbled to hear that the inspiration brought you here and you follow me. I'm a sportsman, and I have not yet retired. I still play soccer.
We can see.
I'm a boxer. My last boxing match was 2019. And I believe very much in sport, and I respect sport. It's for that reason why we want to make NamRA a sporting institution, because from sport we believe that if we develop that winning mentality and that happiness that we demonstrate at the field, we will bring that at work as well. You may have also noted that April, we hosted the Southern Africa Inter Revenue Administration game in Swakopmund, and we hosted about 1,300. And as a result of that initiative, in the economy of Swakopmund, we brought about more than 20 million in a period of a weekend. And remember that we do not have much money at NamRA, but we needed to host that because we have to do that for Namibia and for the community of Swakopmund. So we believe very much in sport. It's also for that reason whereby we have even taken a deliberate decision to even hire sport people. Even in our netball team, in some of our sprinters and some of our soccer players, we recruited them but they must have qualification and where to be used. We have national team player from the netball team playing for Namibia Revenue Agency. That's why we are the best in Africa and so on. So I would I love sport. I have always loved sport, and I'm going to love sport as long as I live, because I'm a sportsman and I still play sport.
Is that a yes?
And by the way, in Zimbabwe last year, in the soccer, I scored the most beautiful goal in Zimbabwe. Yeah, so I would always want to be associated with sport, and that's why at NamRA, do you know that at NamRA on Friday we work until 12 o'clock because we need to go and participate in sport, and by 4 o'clock every morning I'm up exercising with a group of people who believe in longevity and investing in their health. So I love sport more than anything else that you.
I guess that's a yes. I guess that's a yes. Is there some? I see here. There's a question. How are we doing on time? Can we squeeze in this question? The light is blinding me. I can't see.
I'll move so fast.
Introduce yourself, please.
Okay, my name is Samuel. I'm actually in the publishing space. I run a publishing company called Africa Blossom. But I'm also just speaking as somebody who has experienced in the process of revenue collection, have dealt, with Minister of Finance from way back in 2006 up to now. And from 2021, when NamRA started, I could see the transformation, in terms of the team members. At some point it was opaque, it was rough. You'd leave the place feeling like, oh, this is disgusting. But I've seen a transformation. I've used the right term. I just want to ask Mr. Shivute, are there any deliberate efforts of sort of like influencing, especially government institutions, to transform in terms of culture the way we've seen happening with NamRA?
Good question.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Samuel. So I believe so, because I remember a few months ago, NIPAM NamRA invited me to go and share the NamRA culture at Namibia, at NIPAM. And they have invited a number of other government ministry. Unfortunately, not everyone came. But I have also seen the Public Enterprise as well forum. They also invited NamRA to go and share the culture. But what we are only saying is that I'm a Namibian public servant. I want to see our country prospering. I'm a Pan-Africanist. And in actual fact, in my capacity as a vice chairman of Africa Tax Administration Forum, now we are serving about 45 African countries. And we are sharing this story. And we do not just want to work for NamRA. We are helping to build efficient and effective tax system in Africa. So if the government, other institution they want, we are ready to share and to help them, because we don't want only one institution succeeding. We want all other institutions succeeding. And yeah, thank you very. We are ready to be of service. Okay. We love this country.
Yeah, I'm getting the shut it down signs here, so we need to close it down. So I'm so sorry. I don't know if our online people had questions or comment, but our time is up. And I hope we saw tonight that when we talk governance, we're talking about these outcomes. We're talking about tangible culture that you can see. We're talking about unity, harmony. We're talking about even effective controls, not just, the choir singing. That's, the softer side of things, but that looks like, collect good performance, like collecting the amount of revenue that they did, having proper controls, like the technology, is world-class so that we can have effective control. Mr. Shivute, NamRA is still young, but you have done so much, and it gives us hope that a government institution could run at a world-class level. And so we are so grateful for your time, for having come here and showing us, and I hope we can see that, it's not about just the codes and the charters and all of that, but it's about the lived experience, how the people at customs answer questions, how the commission answers a call from, whoever. That's lived experience, that's governance. So I don't know if you have any closing remarks before we thank 91 for having made this possible.
No, I think it's just really to echo your sentiments. Us from the Namibian Institute of Corporate Governance, we are watching. We are watching not only the NamRA, but just generally from our altitude, and it's an encouraging story that we are seeing unfolding before our very eyes. So it's to thank you, Commissioner, for coming, and actually to thank also your colleagues. I think I'm made to understand that you didn't issue a decree for them to come. It's a voluntary support, and that's the type of culture that we wish to see. So thank you to the colleagues, and thank you to you for making the time, and I hope you can just continue imparting and your experiences and your expertise.
Thank you again, and thank you for our viewers, and thank you online community and the audience. And that's a wrap from us. Thank you so much, Commissioner.
That brings us to the end of this edition of the Fireplace Conversations by the Namibian Institute of Corporate Governance. Thank you to our guest, Mr. Sam Shivute, host Edla Gaumbi, and everyone who joined us for this important discussion on everyday governance and the journey